Hi, everyone, and welcome to Buzzworthy Live. Thanks for joining us today. Our session is about AI, authenticity, and the future of member engagement. Today, we're joined by KiKi L'Italien, the Executive Vice President of Marketing and Community Engagement at Big Red M and Editor-in-Chief of Association Chat. She's an expert in digital strategy and trusted leadership. She's here to share her insights on how associations can navigate AI while staying authentic and engaging. So as per usual, we'll be answering questions at the end of the show. So be sure to leave them in the chat box beside this window and we'll get them answered. All right, KiKi, let's get started.
Let's go.
So associations are competing for members' attention. There's nothing new about that. But especially online, I feel like that's one area where associations really can struggle. In spaces like social media, streaming services, and other platforms can take attention from members day to day. So how do you think that associations kind of can cut through that noise and reach their members?
I think that what we're really dealing with is this constant barrage of just every single possible distraction that we can deal with. Um, you know, being brought to us on an ongoing basis. We have programs and books and courses of study that are trying to teach us how to just focus on what we need to focus on instead of getting distracted. And I think that it's really, really, really hard. I can't even emphasize that enough to break through all of that. It's more than just, the noise of other, the competition coming through. It's the noise of our reality right now that we're trying to break through. So for associations to get through, we were already struggling in association world to break through and to get people's attention and to show our value and to demonstrate that value regularly. But now it's just like, oh my God, how are you actually going to achieve this? And I think that the way to do it is we actually have to not plug things in a copy and paste kind of manner, not match everything else that's out there, but really rely heavily on those things that we are able to offer in a way. And I say it's the royal we, as like we associations are able to offer in a way that no one else can. And that is oftentimes the connection, community, the resources that are unique and different and special to what associations can offer, and communicate that so that people can, partake in that value and to enjoy it. But I'm telling you, if we are starting with a rocket ship, emoji, and we're going into the headline and it all looks like it's written by Chat GPT, that is not the way to do it. That's not the way.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think we're definitely in a space right now where the barrier to produce information and find information has never been lower. And in some ways, the playbook doesn't really change for associations. Associations have always been about people. It's been about genuine connection. It's about facilitating knowledge sharing amongst the industry or sector. And I think if associations stay focused on being that source of information, opposed to falling trapped to maybe just getting faster at producing information, but really just worry about the value of that information.
Mhm.
That, in other words, that it's quality information that's very relevant. They're gonna do well. But it all starts with actually participating in the conversation, which I'm not sure how you feel about this, but I feel like governance is very important, but I don't think it's at the same time. It's every association executive would agree that associations do struggle from moving a bit slowly, depending on what
Yeah.
organization you're with. Um, So all that is to say is like you have to actually be participating in the conversation, we'll say conversation online, by producing those resources and opportunities for members. And as long as we're staying focused on um, information and opportunities that are very relevant and authoritative, then associations can be a prime place for folks to really grow and thrive.
I mean, I think that this could be a golden era for associations if we think, if we get enough of our association leaders to recognize the opportunity that exists. I mean, I'll tell you this, never before have we had so many pieces of content that look the same that are flooding all of the screens that are in front of us. It's very easy to differentiate yourself right now with your messaging. I would encourage every single communications, marketing, any leader that is communicating on a regular basis to look at that and to say, wow, like if I put a little tiny bit of effort into this, I might, we can actually break through pretty easily because everything seems to be formatted and looks the same and it's all generated using some of the same tools. And it's like, I think that, everything from like shadow puppets to you name it, try something different. Oh my God, bring back print, use clever animation in your video that is not just generated by AI or Sora or something else. I think that it's going to be amazing. But when you have all over the news right now, we're hearing about departments that are being closed. These are departments that a lot of times we're putting out and producing programs and all kinds of different types of education and benefits and things and I'm talking primarily about America right now, but in the US, putting this out for citizens. This is where our government light associations are primed and ready. We have an association for everything, but we have programming and education and a lot of great resources and yes, and scholarships and all kinds of things that are available to people. um, we should look at this time as even though we are facing so many challenges, we should look at this time as also that opportunity to jump, to stand out, to be able to offer all of these great resources that we have to the public, because this is why associations exist. And so, yeah, it's a great time to communicate that message actually right now.
Yeah, I think there is a common trap there that perhaps within associations, especially the comms and marketing folks, can perhaps fall victim to if they're not too careful. Where, say, the tools that they're using are influencing really their output more than perhaps they should, and the association can lose its brand voice, if you will.
Mm. Mhm.
Do you have any folks for people that are in those kind of marketing communication roles in terms of how they can? I mean, if we take a step back, like these tools are very useful. They're great productivity
Right.
assets to us. But if we don't use them thoughtfully, then perhaps there's some mistakes that can happen along the way. I'm just wondering about your thoughts about that, and do you have any advice for folks?
Yeah, I do want to be clear because I always feel like no matter what I do, I kind of end up in this. You're either for AI tools or you're against it. And I'm like, no, listen, I mean, I love technology. I love the ability to do some really amazing things. We can, use AI, generative AI specifically, to do some incredible things that can enhance the way that we connect. I believe it can enhance the way we connect if we use them properly and not in place of the human touch or the human element that actually creates something special that AI can't do. And so, yeah, my hopes for people who are in marketing and communications, and actually every leader or representative of an association, is to think of things that way and to actually say, okay, how can I use this tool to enhance what I'm doing, so that I can do it better? And one of the ways is to think about how it challenges your own thinking or improves some of your own communication so that you're achieving your objectives or goals. So one thing I like to use AI for example, is I take something I've produced, I've written, and I'm getting ready to share it. And it might be a Facebook post, or it might be something that's an article that I'm getting ready to put out there. And I use it as to sort of do the Socratic method and to have it ask me questions so that I can improve the content that I am putting out there. I also use it to challenge me as far as poke holes in this. Tell me what I'm missing. What would the best argument against this point that I'm trying to make be? And I think that that's amazing. That's really incredible to have a tool like that. I wish I'd had that my entire life to be able to go back and be like help me make my arguments better. But I think that that's where we can use it, and it actually can help us in many ways to do things better than we're already doing them. But I think that we have to be mindful of the fact that it is the human tendency to do the laziest thing. And I don't mean to call people lazy, but the truth hurts. And it's I guess I do mean to call people lazy. We're lazy, and we will tend to do the easiest thing when that is presented to us. It's not good for our brains to grow. It's not good for anything, really. It conserves energy. That's what it's good for. And our challenge is then, how do we fight ourselves when these tools are making it so easy to copy and paste or just to tweak a few things and not go any deeper than that when we really should? And, I don't know about you, but I feel like I'm always it's a war against the clock. I'm constantly trying to figure out how am I going to game my day? And here's my time blocking, and I'm doing all this stuff. Here's my focus time. And so if I have something in front of me that is good enough, and it's easier for me to just go with that and plug it in versus sit with it a while and come back to it and mess around with it and let it build and grow. My tendency is going to be, I'm going to take it, throw it in there, lob that over, and run and go to the next thing. And my concern is that that's what most of us are doing right now. And we need to stop and, sort of get a grip and be like, you know what? Maybe the rule is we're going to sit with this a little bit. And yeah, you can use your tools, but go back to it and then really, poke holes at it and see, can it be better? What am I trying to achieve with this? And is there a better way to go about achieving it? And oh, by the way, how do I not have this sound like every other piece of drivel that's out there that is just will make people glaze over, It's not just stopping the scroll. It's like, what's going to stop people from just this mind numbing glaze of not caring about the thing that they're looking at because it sounds statistically like everything else. I mean, that's how these tools work, is it's pulling the most likely thing that you're going to be, that the most likely answer, which means it's the thing that's produced the most often, which means it's going to be boring by default, right? So so we have to fight against that.
No, I like that. I especially like the point that you kind of broaden the horizon there, where I posed the question as marketing and communication, but especially in I would say in just the age that we're living in now, but we could zoom in even just tighter on the association space. But this really applies to everyone. The association space is a lot to do with networking and interpersonal relationships. If that's just you as a professional, or if that's you inside your association, serving the membership, um, it's communication is everyone's job, right? So if we don't remember that, and take that seriously to some degree, then I think it's going to become easy for folks to kind of do what you said and get a little bit lazy and rely on these tools. And I think it's something like, it's not an original thought, but I'll share it, is that AI should be treated like an employee or
Mhm.
a partner, right? It shouldn't be treated as this oracle that you're looking for answers from. So
Yeah.
if I like your approach in terms of, okay, I'm going to use this thing to challenge me and kind of get my almost like, going and stretching your muscles, right? I'm going to give it what I've created, get like the main thoughts down that I'm trying to communicate, but I'm going to get it to challenge me a little bit, and maybe that'll
Mhm.
shake something loose for me, and there's a piece there that I was missing. I really love that.
Thank you. I mean, I wrestle with this a lot myself because look, I'm human just like everyone else, and I want to save time. Like I too want to save time. I have been guilty certainly of, being like this is good enough, and don't let perfection get in the way of progress and all of that. But I think that, for associations in particular, if we're talking about what it is to actually have value for the members and what it is to sort of stick out. The problem is we were always humans have always been lazy. We've always tended not to want to overwork, right? And so like I know it's strange because we fill our days with stuff,
Yeah.
but the tendency is to do things the easiest way possible. So even before generative AI, there was a struggle to how do we better engage and cultivate relationships within associations with our membership, And I remember when I used to work for an association in DC, right off of DuPont Circle, for those of you who are located there. And you know, the phone call, the personal connections were the things that really didn't happen as often, but were the most effective. They were wildly effective to do that connection, to humanize the communication whenever possible, and to actually, like, video is great because you're able to give a face to people, a face to a name, and to help people to feel like they can connect with you. But it's like, and that was considered inventive then. But now I feel like we're at even more of a risk to not connect people to other people or people to the association the way that we could and the way that we should, even though we have tools that should make it easier. And I just think that we have to keep in mind that the ultimate goal here is that we are forging those connections and providing value, ultimately providing value to our members, so that they keep coming to us and that we meet the goals of our mission. But I ask people a question about how AI can be used to enhance trust, or can it be used to enhance trust when communicating online within associations? And a lot of people came back and said it can't. And some people came back and just said, like, they were like, well, every time you use Grammarly, and I'm like, I'm not talking about Grammarly AI, right? I'm talking about how can we use some of these generative AI tools that are really innovative for us still, in a way that will help us to cultivate trust. Is that possible when there's so much skepticism? Everyone's cynical. People don't even know if my face is real right now, or if there are a million filters on it, or if there's like, if this is some AI clone of who I am that was pre-programmed with all the words I was going to say, and we made a clone of my voice and all of the stuff that you can do now. It's like, people like typos so that they know that something's real. Have you seen that? I mean, it's like you see a typo and you're like, oh, there's a misspelled word. So it's probably a human that really wrote that.
Right.
Um, I think that we have to, I think that we have to just keep in mind that that laziness is inherent, that ultimately we need to forge those connections and figure out ways to do that. I do think that there are ways to enhance trust using AI. But I think one person, my friend Lauren, she wrote back and she said, I think that if you take your writing or a transcript of a meeting and you ask for your generative AI tool to review that and then come back and identify areas where maybe you were too dominant or you were not as thoughtful as you should be, and to question it so that it can better teach you on your own language and communication, um, and trust building skills, that would be a way to go about it and use it. And I think that that's really wise. She's a smart cookie. It's Lauren Lemunyon, folks. Go look her up. She's great.
Yeah, I think the challenge there with trust is AI is a little bit of a black box right now, right? So on one hand, you have ChatGPT and all the other startups that are scraping the entire internet, and they're kind of trying to be everything to everyone. And we give it a
Mm,
prompt, and we don't really know what's going on per se. And just inherently, I think that's where, on a tool level, like that's where the question of trust really comes from. Because as
mhm.
everyone in our space is trying to understand what's the place of all this, or should we be using it in our offices and our daily lives and all that, there's just that fact that AI is regurgitating information out from the internet. You give it a prompt, something happens, and then it
Mhm.
gives you a response. And then you have to kind of sit there and go, depending on what you were looking for, it's like, is this right? Inherently, there's just like a trust factor um, that is part of the equation. Um, Probably on an organizational level, my recommendation would be something like, if you're going to employ some sort of AI tool, say on your website for membership, is make sure it's being as transparent as possible with whatever it's
Mm.
doing. Like, show how the sausage is being made, right?
Yes.
Especially if it is generating original content. Um, just get it to be as transparent as possible, because then you could really avoid a lot of the risks associated without, if you didn't make it super transparent.
I think you're absolutely right. And I think that because of the sort of the cynical nature that we're living in, but because of that's what we're dealing with, that's what is happening in reality. We have deep fakes, and it's easy to make them, right? um, when you live in an age where all of these institutions are sort of crumbling around you that have been around forever, and you have anyone, you don't have to have a lot of money to access tools that are allow you to create things like deep fakes. It's very easy to believe that you can't believe most of what you are seeing around you. That transparency is so key. I think we have to go over and above, and beyond what we ever did before in communicating the how we're using people's data. I don't think that that's something that is actually boring anymore. I think that that's something that we're all going to be seeing more and more of, because it's a true concern. I mean, you know, all of us are becoming technologists in a way because we have to, because our data is out and about and we have zero idea about how it's being used everywhere. But we have an inkling that it's probably not doing something really good for us. Like it's probably something that is potentially damaging. And so, to for associations to be purveyors of good data practices and to convey the way that they take care of their members' data, I think is one great way to help build trust and to regularly communicate about ways that they're protecting it and things that they're not doing with it and things that, if they have policies that they, really believe in and that are fully developed, to talk about what they are so that, people feel like, wow, they're thinking about this, they're taking care of my data, so they're taking care of me. And that's something that I think is different than in the past, because I got to tell you, 20 years ago, no one really cared that much about, that we had, for instance, an AI policy. We didn't have an AI policy in our association. In fact, most associations still don't have AI policies. That needs to change. Or a social media policy. But now I think that these things do matter because it shows that you're being thoughtful and you're being protective of all of this great, valuable data information that you're getting from your members. And that's super, super important.
Well said. Well, Kiki, we're getting towards the end of the show now. We covered a lot of information. How does getting into some questions sound to you?
Let's do it.
Okay, we have our first, we actually have a bunch of questions here. We'll see how much we can get to. The first one here is, how can associations use AI to collaborate with members, sponsors, and other stakeholders since we were all in this together? Very interesting question.
Ooh, that is interesting. So, there are a number of different ways that I think that you can look at this. One might be, I would say, perhaps you upload the different, like if you have a prospectus for your sponsors, or if you have like, what are the benefits of folks exhibiting with you or something at your meeting? What are the benefits to your volunteer leadership and stuff like that? And using AI again to sort of identify areas in which it can be improved, questions that should be asked, and to actually look at that for ideas about ways that you can start some conversations with each one of these groups. I don't know that I would look at a tool, an AI tool out there. I'm thinking if this is true as I'm saying it. I don't know that I can think of like maybe like, oh, let's all go in together and interact, unless it's not really AI exactly. It would be more like being able to engage asynchronously and synchronously. For example, on a tech platform, that's interesting. Like ways that you could engage like that and play around with ideas. But I think on a practical level, if you're just looking at like generative AI, I can see where uploading some of the documents and the resources that you have already and identifying ways that those things can be, your offerings can be improved for those segments is a great thing to do just as a practice, right?
Yeah, I think I'm trying to think of tools that actually do allow real-time collaboration, but I could see this. It's a very interesting question because
Yeah.
of that factor. And the only thing that comes to mind is like, if you can feed it a bunch of information about those stakeholders and what's important to them, as well as the sponsors, maybe what like their competency is, then
Mhm.
you can perhaps use this to generate some original ideas, do some brainstorming about how their potential partnership can play out, in terms of how can they contribute value to the association.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I think we're gonna have to leave it at one question today. We'll stay late
No.
with Kiki, and we'll ask her a couple more questions. We'll be sure to share that out in the post-show email with folks. But hey, thanks for everyone for joining us today on this episode of Buzzworthy Live, and thanks Kiki for being here. Where's the best place for people to follow your work?
Associationchat.com. You can also check out bigredm.com. You can find my work both places, most of it at Association Chat.
Fantastic. Well, thanks again for everyone that joined us today. look for the on-demand version of this broadcast on our website if you're looking to catch up with that. And have a great day, everyone. We'll see you next time on Buzzworthy Live.